of Hell, the opportunists. Summary. The poets pass the gate of hell and are immediately assailed by cries of anguish. Dante sees the first of the souls in torment. They are the opportunists, those souls who in life are neither for good nor evil, but only for themselves. Mixed with them are those outcasts who took no sides in the rebellion of the angels. They are neither in hell nor out of it. Eternally unclassified, they race round and round, pursuing a wavering banner that runs forever before them through the dirty air. And as they run, they are pursued by swarms of wasps and hornets, who sting them and produce a constant flow of blood and putrid matter, which trickles down the bodies of the sinners and is feasted upon by loathsome worms and maggots who coat the ground. The law of Dante's hell is the law of symbolic retribution. As they sinned, so are they punished. They took no sides, therefore they are given no place. As they pursued the ever-shifting illusion of their own advantage, changing their courses with every changing wind, so they pursue eternally an elusive, ever-shifting banner. As their sin was a darkness, so they move in darkness. As their own guilty conscience pursues them, so they are pursued by swarms of wasps and hornets. And as their actions were a mortal filth, so they run eternally through the filth of worms and maggots which they themselves feed. Dante recognizes several among them. Pope Celestine V, but without delaying to speak to any of these souls, the poets move on to Acheron, the first of the rivers of hell. Here the newly arrived souls of the damned gather and wait for monstrous Charon to ferry them over to punishment. Charon recognizes Dante as a living man and angrily refuses him passage. Virgil forces Charon to serve them, but Dante swoons with terror and does not reawaken until he is on the other side. I am the way into the city of woe. I am the way to a forsaken people. I am the way into eternal sorrow. Sacred justice moved my architect. I was raised here by divine omnipotence, primordial love, and ultimate intellect. Only those elements time cannot wear were made before me, and beyond time I stand. Abandon all hope, ye who enter here. These mysteries I read cut into stone above a gate, and turning I said, Master, what is the meaning of this harsh inscription? And he then, as initiate to novice, Here must you put by all division of spirit and gather your soul against all cowardice. This is the place I told you to expect. Here you shall pass among the fallen people, souls who have lost the good of intellect. So saying, he put forth his hand to me, and with a gentle and encouraging smile he led me through the gate of mystery. Here sighs and cries and wails coiled and recoiled on the starless air, spilling my soul to tears. A confusion of tongues and monstrous accents toiled in pain and anger. Voices hoarse and shrill, and sounds of blows all intermingled, raised tumult and pandemonium that still whirls on the air, forever dirty with it, as if a whirlwind sucked at sand. And I, holding my head in horror, cried, Sweet Spirit, what souls are these who run through this black haze? And he to me, These are the nearly soulless, whose lives concluded neither blame nor praise. They are mixed here with that despicable corpse of angels, who were neither for God nor Satan, but only for themselves. The high Creator scourged them from heaven for its perfect beauty, and hell will not receive them, since the wicked might feel some glory over them. And I, Master, what gnaws at them so hideously? Their lamentation stuns the very air. They have no hope of death, he answered me, and in their blind and unattaining state their miserable lives have sunk so low that they must envy every other fate. No word of them survives their living season. Mercy and justice deny them even a name. Let us not speak of them. Look and pass on. I saw a banner there upon the mist. Circling and circling, it seemed to scorn all pause, so it ran on, and still behind it pressed a never-ending rout of souls in pain. I had not thought death had undone so many as passed before me in that mournful train, and some I knew among them. Last of all I recognized the shadow of that soul who, in his cowardice, made the great denial. At once I understood for certain these were of that retrograde and faithless crew hateful to God and to his enemies. These wretches never born and never dead ran naked in a swarm of wasps and hornets that goaded them the more they fled, and made their faces stream with bloody gouts of pus and tears that dribbled to their feet to be swallowed there by loathsome worms and maggots. Then, looking onward, I made out a throng assembled on the beach of a wide river, whereupon I turned to him. Master, I long to know what souls these are, and what strange usage makes them as eager to cross as they seem to be in this infected light. At which the sage, all this shall be made known to you when we stand on the joyless beach of Acheron. And I cast down my eyes, sensing a reprimand in what he said, and so I walked at his side in silence and ashamed, until we came through the dead cavern to that sunless tide. There, steering toward us in an ancient ferry, came an old man with a white bush of hair, bellowing, "Woe to you, depraved souls! Bury here and forever all hope of paradise. I come to lead you to the other shore, into eternal dark, into fire and ice. And you who are living yet, I say, be gone from those who are dead." But when he saw me stand against his violence, he began again. "By other windings and by other steerage shall you cross to that other shore, not here, not here. A lighter craft than mine must give you passage." And my guide to him, "Charon, bite back your spleen. This has been willed, where what is willed must be, and is not yours to ask what it may mean." The steersman of that marsh of ruined souls, who wore a wheel of flame around each eye, stifled the rage that shook his woolly jowls. But those unmanned and naked spirits there turned pale with fear, and their teeth began to shatter at sound of his crude bellow. In despair they blasphemed God, their parents, their time on earth, the race of Adam, and the day and the hour, and the place, and the seed, and the womb that gave them birth. But altogether they drew to that grim shore where all must come who lose the fear of God. Weeping and cursing they came for evermore. And demon Charon, with eyes like burning coals, herds them in, and with a whistling oar flails on the stragglers to his wake of souls, as leaves in autumn loosen and stream down until the branch stands bare above its tatters spread on the rustling ground. So one by one the evil seed of Adam in its fall cast themselves at his signal from the shore, and streamed away like birds who hear their call. So they are gone over that shadowy water, and always before they reach the other shore a new noise stirs on this, and new throngs gather. "My son," the courteous master said to me, "all who die in the shadow of God's wrath converge to this from every clime and country, and all pass over eagerly, for here divine justice transforms and spurs them so their dread turns wish. They yearn for what they fear. No soul in grace comes ever to this crossing. Therefore, if Charon rages at your presence, you will understand the reason for his cursing." When he had spoken, all the twilight country shook so violently the terror of it bathes me with sweat, even in memory. The tear-soaked ground gave out a sigh of wind that spewed itself in flame on a red sky, and all my shattered senses left me. Blind, like one whom sleep comes over in a swoon, I stumbled into darkness and went down. Canto 3 notes, lines 7 and 8. "Only those elements time cannot wear" refers to the angels. The empyrean and the first matter are the elements time cannot wear, for they will last to all time. Man, however, in his mortal state is not eternal. The gate of hell, therefore, was created before man. The theological point is worth attention. The doctrine of original sin is, of course, one familiar to many creeds. Here, however, it would seem that the preparation for damnation predates original sin. True, in one interpretation, hell was created for the punishment of the rebellious angels and not for man. Had man not sinned, he would never have known hell. But, on the other hand, Dante's God was one who knew all, and knew therefore that man would indeed sin. The theological problem is an extremely delicate one. It is significant, however, that having sinned, man lives out his days on the rind of hell. and that damnation is forever below his feet. This central concept of man's sinfulness and, opposed to it, the doctrine of Christ's ever-abounding mercy are central to all of Dante's theology. Only as man surrenders himself to divine love may he hope for salvation, and salvation is open to all who will surrender themselves. Line 8, and to all time I stand. So odious is sin to God that there can be no end to its just punishment. Line 9, abandon all hope, ye who enter here. The admonition, of course, is to the damned and not to those who come on heaven-sent errands. The harrowing of hell, see Canto 4, provided the only exemption from this decree, and that only through the direct intercession of Christ. Line 57, who in his cowardice made the great denial. This is almost certainly intended to be Celestine V, who became Pope in 1294. He was a man of saintly life, but allowed himself to be convinced by a priest named Benedetto that his soul was in danger, since no man could live in the world without being damned. In fear for his soul, he withdrew from all worldly affairs and renounced the papacy. Benedetto promptly assumed the mantle himself and became Boniface VIII, a pope who became for Dante a symbol of all the worst corruptions of the church. Dante also blamed Boniface and his intrigues for many of the evils that befell Florence. We shall learn in Canto 19 that the fires of hell are waiting for Boniface in the pit of the Simoniacs, and we shall be given further evidence of his corruption in Canto 27. Celestine's great guilt is that his cowardice and selfish terror for his own welfare served as the door through which so much evil entered the church. Line 80, an old man. Charon. He is the ferryman of dead souls across the Acheron in all classic mythology. Lines 88 through 90, by other windings. Charon recognizes Dante not only as a living man, but as a soul in grace, and knows, therefore, that the infernal ferry was not intended for him. He is probably referring to the fact that souls destined for purgatory and heaven assemble not at his ferry point, but on the banks of the Tiber, from which they are transported by an angel. Line 100, they blasphemed God. The souls of the damned are not permitted to repent, for repentance is a divine grace. Line 123, they yearn for what they fear. Hell, allegorically sin, is what the souls of the damned really wish for. Hell is their actual and deliberate choice, for divine grace is denied to none who wish for it in their hearts. The damned must in fact deliberately harden their hearts to God in order to become damned. Christ's grace is sufficient to save all who wish for it. Lines 133 through 34, Dante's swoon. This device, repeated at the end of Canto 5, serves a double purpose. The first is technical. Dante uses it to cover a transition. We are never told how he crossed Acheron, for that would involve certain narrative matters he can better deal with when he crosses Styx in Canto 7. The second is to provide a point of departure for a theme that is carried through the entire descent, the theme of Dante's emotional reaction to hell. These two swoons early in the descent show him most susceptible to the grief about him. As he descends, pity leaves him, and he even goes so far as to add to the torments of one sinner. The allegory is clear. We must harden ourselves against every sympathy for sin.